and welcome back to the channel. Listen, I told y'all I was coming back this week. If you didn't watch my last video, which was the podcast episode, I said summer break is over. My Jet 2 holiday, it's done. Nothing beat it. And now we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. So I am here with a Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion part 2 review. And listen, the reunion is not bad. It's not bad. The fact that Britt did not show up, though, that's what makes it even weirder, because we're talking about things and it feels like there's a hole in those things, and there is, because the main person that could clear something up is not here. And listen, don't get me wrong, you won't hear me asking for Britt Edie any other day of the week. I'm really not upset that she's not here. I'm not upset she won't be back to the show. I think it's probably what's best for the show and her and others involved, as we see. But it's just like, okay, girl, you can at least come and close this chapter up, right? However, getting straight into it, is this whole Angela pinning the rumors and the guy coming up to her at Williams-Sonoma on Phaedra falling a little flat? Yes. However, I want to make a point. My girl Angela's back here. I think that had Phaedra not come in with the energy that she came in with towards Angela, it would fall even flatter and Angela would look sillier than she kind of does. And don't get me wrong, Angela does look silly, right? However, if someone came into the group, back into the group at me, and the majority of this shit she was talking was about me and my marriage, I would be like, okay, now this person is coming at me and my marriage. I'm gonna think it's you, right? Because when she talked about Kelly, it was like fun shade, like your little garden gnome, Princess Peach, like funny things. With Angela, that's not really funny, right? So I'm going to throw it back. She came and said Angela is the oldest young lady ever. Okay, we'll leave that shade at that. But then she says things like, oh, you know, when I knew Charles, I didn't know Charles to be married. Then she tells us that she knew Charles 10 years ago. But like I said in my other Real Housewives of Atlanta videos, Angela and Charles been married for 8 years, right? Angela and Charles been married for 8 years. Phaedra talking about she met him 10 years ago and was hanging around him 10 years ago. Okay, well then you were around him before he was ever with Angela. Again, what did you want the man to do? Go be like, hey, Phaedra, I got married. You know, did you know I got married? Did you know I got married? No. So I do understand where Angela is coming from, being hell-bent on this being Phaedra's doing, especially because Phaedra is known to do sneaky shit like this. She really is. Let's not act like it's so out of the ordinary, okay? And even when it came down to her like calling her brother, I don't trust a word that comes out of Phaedra's mouth. So, and like Angela said, that's your brother, so I don't think that you're gonna call him from their union. He's gonna be like, yeah, I know that girl that this woman is blaming you for starting all this. Duh. Also, what made me roll my eyes in the back of my head was Andy asking Phaedra why she didn't show up to the Married to Medicine reunion. We know why she didn't show up to the Married to Medicine reunion. It's because Real Housewives of Atlanta called her back, and she even said it in a roundabout way. She said, originally, I'm a housewife. She was only on Married to Medicine so she could get her way back onto Real Housewives of Atlanta, especially since Kandi was leaving. Because trust and believe, the only reason she here is because Tanya Randall got pregnant and decided not to play. AKA because Kandi left. And if you know that reference, you know, okay? And if you don't know, you're probably like, who the fuck is Tanya Randall? Now, I want to say this. Shamia, in all of this alliance talk, enough. And you know what's irritating me is that Shamia is not changing her tune. She seems to be just shifting the alliance. She really did turn out to be way more cornier than I had imagined. But do I think that she's still a good fit for Housewives? Yes, I do. Okay. I don't know who's telling the truth when it comes to the alliance for Portia, Shamia, any of that. And I'm not here to really get into it, right? Because again, we're missing a piece of that puzzle, which is Britt. I do feel like Portia has an air to her. She's got like an attitude during this reunion, and almost it's what seems like a defense of Britt. And I'm just like, what is this? And I don't know. I feel like either Portia and Shamia are playing this feud up for the cameras, or they have a lot a lot of unresolved shit amongst them as friends. I do find that to be crazy if that's the answer. Ultimately, Shamea just fell so flat to me during this part of the reunion because of all the fibs, she could have pulled out regarding Drew telling non-truths. The fact that she chose you said this is a Judith Lieber bag and it's really an Akira bag. Baby, really? Which Judith Lieber commented, or the official Instagram for Judith Lieber commented and said that is the real bag. Again, this is Real Housewives of Atlanta. First of all, like I said, you could have found an actual lie that Drew has told to support your calling her a liar. And this is Real Housewives of Atlanta. Everybody's carrying some type of bag that is a dupe, is not real. Please be serious. Oh, Shamea, it hurt me for her. It hurt me for her to see her fall so flat. Okay. Now, moving on, we got a preview of the men showing up, and I was very, very annoyed because I can't stand when the men want to be super messy and then they say things that are just unnecessary, right? So first things first, Ralph saying, I didn't know the album was going to be about me. I'm sorry. Don't you film a little show in the basement of that fucking house where you talk about Drew and y'all's business? Y'all are getting divorced. What the fuck do you think she would sing about, right? And let's say she was singing about getting her groove back, being with new flames. I feel like Ralph is petty enough to be down to the courts. I'm down to the courts, or whatever the fuck he said in his confessional, which don't give him any more of those. Please don't give him any more of those. And he would be complaining about it. What do you mean you didn't know that she was going to sing about your divorce? Again, I highly dislike when people say really stupid shit. Secondly, Dennis saying she bought a picture of you to the studio. Why do you need to say that? Why do you need to say that? Why? Quickly. You just being messy, being loud and messy, and I hate it. It's not a good look on y'all. But all in all, that really is my only feedback from this second part of the reunion. Listen, y'all know how we feel about 3-part reunions around here. They're rarely necessary, even for jam-packed seasons, but they definitely were not necessary for this season of Real Housewives of Atlanta, which I didn't dislike. Oh, you know what? The only other thing I meant to mention is, you know, when everything went down with Kenya and Britt, and Cynthia was like, Kenya won't talk to me, you know, I'm just not going to co-sign her behavior, la 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 la. I was like, I hear where you're coming from, Cynthia. I don't know. Something about it was, I was like, maybe I understand why Kenya hasn't spoken to Cynthia. Maybe I'm starting to get it. Because Cynthia, again, I don't agree with what Kenya did. I do not agree with what Kenya did. But now that I'm like really sitting back and thinking about it, if you threaten me with a pew-pew and then she retaliates, does what she did, again, I was on Kenya's side until the poster boards because she still shouldn't have done that. But if you do that, and as my friend, you're sitting here taking up for this girl when people are telling her like, hey, her attitude was god awful, yeah, I'm gonna feel a type of way. I am going to feel a type of way. So I understood that. I think I understand that on Kenya's part. But that's all I have for The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 16, Reunion, Episode 2. We're going to wrap it up next week. I hope it'll be a little bit better. I hear Charles is about to come in there and get them all together. But I do feel like that's probably going to be the bulk of the entertainment from the reunion. I know Andy was like, oh, there were some shade assassins. There were some receipts bought. And I'm just like, Andy, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Don't forget to drop down in the comments. Let me know how you were feeling about the second part of the reunion, or the reunion as a whole, because I didn't do my part 1 last week. And I will talk to y'all next time.